Hi there, and a very warm welcome to Season 6, Episode 41 of People Soup. It's Ross McIntosh here.
Yet so often we think we're going to get the best out of ourselves by talking to ourselves in a horrible tone, right? We talk to ourselves in a way that we'd never talk to our colleagues, never talk to our friends or our partners. And we honestly believe that if I stopped using that voice on myself, then I'd slip or I'd be lazy or I'd get it wrong, even though we know it does not work. And actually saying, what's this tone of voice? How would I talk to someone else I cared about? That's not accepting mediocrity. That's not giving in. It's saying, hey, this is hard. You've got this.
In this episode, I continue my chat with Dr. Ben Sedley, clinical psychologist, author, and speaker. We delve into his book, Holding the Heavy Stuff, Making Space for Critical Thoughts and Painful Emotions. The conversation covers the book's structure, featuring chapters on presence, compassion, curiosity, purpose, and support, and explores how it aims to serve individuals navigating life's pressures in work, relationships, leisure, and health. Ben discusses the motivation behind writing a relatable guide that is accessible to those who may not typically pick up self-help books. I share my review and highlight the value of Ben's empathetic and jargon-free writing style. We also touch upon practical applications of self-compassion in the workplace and personal life, underscoring the importance of being kind to oneself. The episode emphasizes the broader impact of the book, the collaborative efforts involved in its creation, and the journey of publishing and promoting it. Thanks for tuning in, folks. People Soup is a podcast that mixes stories, science, and a sprinkle of daftness to explore what helps people thrive at work and beyond. Our mission is to give you the ingredients for a better work life through insights and stories grounded in behavioral science, especially acceptance and commitment therapy, and other evidence-based approaches. Before we go on, let's take a quick scoot over to the news desk. I am presenting 2 courses this year in collaboration with Joe Oliver at Contextual Consulting. The first is called Building Better Teams, where I'll present a practitioner approach to pro-social and act-based collaboration in a 3-hour workshop on the 11th of February. Collaboration and cooperation are the foundation of successful teams, but achieving them can often feel elusive. The pro-social approach offers a cutting-edge, evidence-based framework that integrates the principles of ACT, evolutionary science, and Elinor Ostrom's Nobel Prize-winning core design principles. I'll introduce you to the approach, my experience of using the approach, and the core tools. The second is called Leading with Purpose, ACT Strategies for Resilient and Authentic Leadership. This one is over 3 sessions in May, and the early bird rate ends soon on the 30th of January 2026. I'll introduce you to fresh and practical approaches to support leaders, showing how key skills rooted in behavioral science can help them develop and sustain their authentic leadership style. These skills are designed to enhance resilience, focus, and effectiveness while supporting leaders to navigate the pressures and complexities of modern workplaces with clarity and purpose. You'll find the details of both of these courses in the show notes or over at contextualconsulting.co.uk. So it's time to get a brew on and have a listen to part 2 of my chat with Dr. Ben Sedley. So Ben, I'd like to dive into your book, please, and just to remind people what it's called, Holding the Heavy Stuff, Making Space for Critical Thoughts and Painful Emotions. Now, Ben, I've read the book.
I'm excited.
And I've written a review, which I'm going to share with you now. And Ben hasn't heard this yet, folks, so don't be alarmed, Ben, is my little spoiler for you. This is a book for our times. As humans, we all suffer. Most of us are carrying heavy stuff. And this book is a relatable, identifiable, down-to-earth guide to navigating life, whether it's work, relationships, leisure time, or health. In the book, we get to know different characters along the way and the challenges they're facing. We also get to see and appreciate how they're engaging and relating to the exercises in the book. And Ben, I'm a big fan of the way the book is structured. It really spoke to me. And I'd just like to share the chapter titles with the P Supers to give them an idea of the structure, because I love the sequence, and I'm going to ask you about the sequence a bit later on. But the chapter titles are, number 1, the heavy stuff. Number 2, the heavy stuff gets heavier. Number 3, holding the heavy stuff with presence. Number 4, holding the heavy stuff with compassion. Number 5, holding the heavy stuff with curiosity. Number 6, holding the heavy stuff with purpose. And number 7, holding the heavy stuff with support. I loved the structure and how it guided me through presence, compassion, curiosity, purpose, and support. It just felt so creative and useful and appropriate. So I'm going to come back to that. And let me just finish off with my review. We have such a skilled guide in Ben who offers us humanity, compassion, and support. I think it's tremendous, and I say bravo, Ben. Thank you for putting this out in the world. And I'd also like to shout out to the book designer, Catherine Adams, and the illustrator, Kalos Chan, because I really resonated with what you said in part 1 about commissioning your own illustrator. And for me, the design and the illustrations really helped to bring to life your words. So thank you.
What a very kind, lovely review. Thank you, Ross. I really was trying to write a book for people who may not normally pick up self-help books. I look in the self-help book section, I see these pages, they're 400 pages long, and I'm like, who reads these books? And it turns out there are some people who do. But most of us struggle to read a 400-page book lots of the time, but especially when you're really stressed or depressed. Mm-hmm. You know, you need something that's quick, gets to the point, with pictures, not too many words on the page. Mm. So I've written a book for the people who are struggling, which is all of us some of the time.
I was in my home village where I'm from, in Ovingham in Northumberland in the UK, a fair bit recently, and last time was about 2 weeks ago. And people are curious about what I do. And a couple of people during sort of social situations were talking about my work and how they felt they were struggling with their own lives and everything that's going on in the world at the moment. And it was a real joyful moment for me. And the reason it was a joyful moment is that I could say, well, you know my work, you know what's really resonated with me is this book I've read recently. And I recommended it to 2 of my pals, and they've both bought it. I've heard that they both bought it, and what I don't have is a review yet, but I'll keep you posted.
Oh, Ross, thank you so much for that. Thank you. And thank you for recommending it to your friends. I will just do a really tiny plug to say to everyone listening, reviews really matter. If you ever like any book, go back to Goodreads or Amazon or wherever you get your books or post and write a review for the book. It's the most useful way of getting algorithms to recommend it to other people. But that's a side point, because the main point is hearing that someone or 2 of your mates on the other side of the world from me found some of my ideas helpful. That's just, it's gold, right? It's beyond what I could ever hope for in life.
Ben, at the beginning, I talked about how I believe this book could be useful to have in workplaces as a reference point on an organizational website. Do you resonate with that? Do you see that it could be useful for adults in the workplace?
Oh, so much so. As I said in part 1, this book is written for human beings with emotions and critical thoughts, and those are human beings. And, you know, everyone in the workplace has their bad days and has their thoughts that are upsetting or the heavy feelings. And the more we can normalize that, it's fine. We can support each other. We can all, ideal world, we're all talking about, gosh, looks like you're holding a lot of heavy stuff today. We're creating shared language for a workplace to use. Not so the manager can say, hey, read this book and we'll get more productivity out of you, but so that you can meet someone in a genuine, compassionate, authentic way and say, hey, I read this book, it resonated for me, and I think it might resonate for you. Or don't read a book, but here's one idea I got from the book. And, in this world of, sorry, I put on my old man pants, we've got TikToks of 30-second messages rather than hour-long videos and tweets rather than books. Just getting across one idea to one person on one day matters so much that we just need to say, here's one idea that resonated for me. Something like figure out what you care about and care about it. That's just one page from Stuff That Sucks that, here's one tweet you can take and share in your workplace. Most of the adults I work with have jobs or are job hunting, which is, that time you've got to try and present your best self while you're often feeling your worst self. So the compassion is so useful, and helping people just build up that compassionate voice, that self-compassionate voice, that voice that you talk to another loved one on a bad day. When they're having a bad day, how can you use that voice on yourself too? I'm thinking someone I was working with last week who shared her own history of trauma, and so she had many reasons why she was anxious about speaking up or, expressing her voice or saying no to someone. And there sounded like there was one work colleague in particular who was possibly, and I only know her side, but was possibly obnoxious to lots of other people, but certainly seemed to deliberately or not deliberately take advantage of this and talk to her in ways that aren't really acceptable as human, and ask her to do things that are probably not reasonable things for him to be asking her to do, work jobs. And just by building up her own self-compassionate voice, to be able to say, hey, I'm allowed to be here too. I'm allowed to speak too. I'm allowed a voice. And actually, for her in particular, going, wait a minute, you weren't one of my abusers. You're just a man in my workplace who's, gosh, she started describing it. She said, I caught my breath and I watched him. And I was like, you're acting like a toddler. You're having a tantrum right now just because I'm saying no to you one time. And she could only get there by holding the heavy stuff with presence, by catching her breath and noticing, this is where I am right now. I'm not in my childhood. I'm not face to face with my abuser. I'm in a workplace, and this isn't how we talk to each other in workplaces. And then she could tune in, she could hold her heavy stuff with compassion, and she could listen to that internal voice that is kind, strong, confident, and wise. And she can remember that she can include herself in the list of people that she values and say, it's actually okay for me not to be rushing all the time. And it's okay for me to say no to a piece of work that's outside my scope, or I've got enough work to do. I'm not slacking off. I've got enough work to do. And it can make such a difference. So that's just one example of helping her figure out how much energy do I want to put into keeping my head down and not upsetting this person who don't deserve the energy. They're not worth it right now. I need to care for myself while caring for other people, not becoming an arrogant person, but actually I'm going to include myself in the list of people I care about.
Beautiful.
And that is compassion.
Which leads me on to, you'll have gathered I'm a fanboy of the structure of the book and the chapters. I love the way you brought compassion into it quite soon on. And I love the progression from starting with presence, because I think, in my opinion, and a lot of people find it tricky to be present in the work environment, potentially due to repetitive tasks, potentially due to the pace of work and the challenge and the speed which people are encouraged to fulfill their contractual obligations. And I just love the sequencing. Can you talk to me more about how you came up with that framework for the book?
Yeah, so my framework was me imagining I was meeting someone, a client I'm working with. This is the order I'd talk to them about it. Not always, different things to different people, but a rough guide. So this is the order it naturally comes out for me. You gave all those examples about the reasons it's hard to be present in the workplace, and there's lots and lots of external pressure. But most often, it's just those shoulds that stop us being present. One of the hardest things in the world is realizing I can only take steps from where I am right now, not from where my mind tells me I should be. And, we're so often busy beating ourselves up because we're not further up the ladder, or we haven't already finished our work, or if only I should have done this yesterday or last month, and that's all energy that doesn't help us, right? We're saying, actually, right here, right now, this is where I am. This is how I am today. How do I want to be today? How can I work towards what matters from the starting point? And then how do I take those steps? I need to use compassion. I don't need to use compassion. I can try and bully myself and beat myself up. And we know, you're never going to get the best out of your workmate, out of your colleague or an employee by being horrible to them. There's so many workplace trainings that you run saying, how do you want to talk to your colleagues? How do you say, hey, I can see what you're trying to do here, and maybe you can make this change, rather than, what the hell do you call that? That's a load of rubbish. Get it right next time. You're not going to get the best out of anyone else you work with if you talk to them in that horrible tone. Yet so often we think we're going to get the best out of ourselves by talking to ourselves in a horrible tone, right? We talk to ourselves in a way that we'd never talk to our colleagues, never talk to our friends or our partners. And we honestly believe that if I stopped using that voice on myself, then I'd slip, or I'd be lazy, or I'd get it wrong, even though we know it does not work. And actually saying, what's this tone of voice? How would I talk to someone else I cared about? That's not accepting mediocrity. That's not giving in. It's saying, hey, this is hard. You've got this. Cool. You can do this. I can see you're struggling. I'm supporting you. Dennis Turch, who's in New York, who's one of the people I learned compassion work from, he had a lovely way of saying that, talked about fierce compassion. That compassion isn't always kind. Kindness is saying, I've had a hard day, I'm going to take the evening off and watch telly. Compassion might be, yeah, I can tell you're tired, and it matters to you to dig a little deep and do this job. Sometimes compassion is just doing your taxes when you want to watch Netflix. It's about being that supportive advocate for yourself, that person who's pushing you a little bit harder, but in a really supportive, caring, loving way.
Beautifully explained, Ben. Thank you. And I often talk about compassion in coaching and in group work. And it can be a difficult thing to land with organizations. I once spoke about it with a kind of an introductory session to a group. And it was a startup company and in the tech world. And I was talking about just pausing and reflecting and thinking, as you've said, that sometimes we can speak to ourselves in a way we wouldn't speak to the loved ones in our lives. And I continued, and then this was quite a small group, maybe about 20, 25 people. That was the whole organization. And the CEO chimed in and said, but that's what gives us a competitive advantage. Us being harsh, us pushing ourselves and driving ourselves. And it's sometimes difficult to land the concept of kind of fierce compassion in the face of that role modeling from a CEO. And you probably won't be surprised to hear I didn't get the ongoing gig for that. Everyone rallied around the CEO going, yeah, we have to be a bit tough with ourselves to move forwards. And I think it was a blessing in a way. I mean, I feel for the people there, but they weren't going to resonate with my approach.
One of the ways that I talk about it, and again, like most things in my book, they're taken from other ACT experts in the world. I'm not claiming I came up with any of these ideas. People like the way I explain it, but they're not my ideas. But I'm roughly paraphrasing something I learned from Russell Coates in Spokane, Washington. If one of your workmates said, I'm thinking of learning tennis. Do you know any tennis coaches? You're like, do you know what's really weird? I actually do know 2 tennis coaches. There's Al. And Al, he sits on the side of the court with a megaphone just going, what the hell was that? Get your serve right next time. And there's Betty. She stands right next to you, alongside you, says, okay, that was good. I can see what you're trying to do. You're not quite there yet. Let's try the serve again this way. If you knew those 2 tennis coaches, which name would you recommend to your colleague at work? To which most people say, you'd recommend Betty? How about if it wasn't your colleague? How about if your colleague said, hey, my neighbor's cousin's looking to go to learn tennis. Do you know any tennis coaches? Which name would you give to your workmate's neighbour's cousin?
I think I'd still be inclined to give Betty.
Me too. I'd still, even though I don't know this person at all, I'd still want them to go to this coach, right? Which one would you send yourself to? We'd probably say, well, I like Betty, but too often we think the only way to get the best out of ourselves
Megaphone.
is to go to that first coach.
That's such a neat explanation because I could see myself almost being tempted to go with Megaphone.
For yourself, yeah. Even though you want your neighbour's cousin, your workmate's neighbour's cousin to go with Betty.
I love it. That's beautiful.
We'd rather give them more compassion than we'd give to ourselves, eh?
Wow. I'm going to go on a tangent here, Ben, but one of my colleagues in the ACT in the workplace world is called Jamie Tapper, and she is an ex-principal ballet dancer in the Canadian Royal Ballet and also the Royal Ballet in London. And then she retrained as an organizational psychologist. And she talks about, when we're doing what we call in ACT cognitive diffusion, and talk about giving our mind a playful nickname as a way to just loosen the attachment to those thinking patterns. I call my mind the head of drama, which represents my catastrophic nature in the way I think about things. And she calls her mind the drill sergeant. And we often have a chat about how that drill sergeant did help her a bit in her ballet career. The ballet career I only get a glimpse into it, but I do work with dancers in the UK. But it's quite regimented, it's quite structured, and it's quite push your body to achieve these artistic interpretations. And she says that sometimes the drill sergeant did help her to continue and to get to where she got to in her career, to the pinnacle of her career. But she also notices that outside of the ballet career, the drill sergeant still shows up sometimes when it's really, really not helpful. And I just share that because I think it just really emphasizes in our work that the context plays a really important part.
Yeah, one look at me and you'd know straight away I'm not a professional dancer. But I suspect all professional top-performing athletes could actually do with a lot more fierce compassion and a bit less drill sergeant as well. So not kindness, not, oh, don't worry, it's okay to be the fifth best in the world. It's just, come on, I believe in you. You got this. You can be the best in the world. Rather than, what the hell's wrong with you? Why do you only finish fifth? What dancers have to go through, and I can't imagine how hard it would be performing at that level, staring in the mirror all day, having somebody yell at you all day. But I think even in those contexts, fierce compassion could be really useful.
Absolutely agree. And because these people are often role models for people who are looking up to them and looking for behavioral cues or guidance on how to get to where they've got to. And those messages can be quite damaging if they are very more like your megaphone man and less like fierce compassion. I wanted to also ask, Ben, about your writing style, because it feels very natural, sort of infused with humanity and care. I'm just curious about how that style has evolved.
That's a lovely question. I haven't been asked before, Ross. I love it. Thank you. My main writing style for these books is to sit and imagine I'm talking to someone. Bring to mind one particular person I've worked with and say, how would I say it to them? Hopefully you've noticed in the book there's none of this ACT jargon. I don't use the word diffusion, or hopefully you don't even use the word acceptance. I say, how would I explain this to someone in front of me, a real human being? I think the thing that drew me to writing self-help books, the thing I said, that first pitch I gave to Joe was too many self-help books, even ACT books like, hey, I've got the answers for you. And I would never do that with a client who walked in and sat down opposite me. I would never say, hello, thank you for coming to see me, let me tell you the answers. I would want to first understand what's going on for them and say, oh my gosh, that sounds really hard. Maybe here's some ideas that could help you. And that's why Stuff That Sucks starts, the first third is me validating. the emotions, talking about what it feels like to have the emotions. I can't actually listen to the reader. I can't validate the emotions directly, but I'm trying to just talk about what it feels like to have the emotions. And the start of holding the heavy stuff, I give some case examples, and they're all fictional, based loosely on composites of people I work with that I hope will resonate with the readers, so that the reader's going, hey, this person gets what it feels like for me before they jump in with any ideas at all. There's a quote which is attributed to Thomas Edison, and it may or may not be, because as Abraham Lincoln said, don't trust anything you read on the internet. But the quote is, nobody cares how much you know until they know how much you care. And that's what I was trying to get across in the book. I have an amazing friend, Claire Murdoch, who's an editor, and she looked at a really early draft of my first attempt at writing a book for adults. And based on her feedback, I threw out about 2/3 of the book. But one of the things she said, anytime you try and be funny, you lose the reader. When you're just being authentic and genuine and validating, that really resonates with the readers. And so that was my guiding light when I'm writing the book. Don't try and be clever. Don't try and be funny. Just be present with somebody's real pain. And even though I can't hear the reader's pain, I've met enough human beings to know that the reader is suffering.
Thank you. And there's a quote on your, or a sentence on your website saying, books have an incredible power to connect, reassure, and guide. You've talked a little bit about the impact of the first two books. It's early days for this book, I guess, but how are people responding?
It is early days, and I've had some lovely feedback from people. There was a review on Radio New Zealand by someone who didn't know this person, and she just captured all the bits I was hoping somebody would get from the book. One of the lovely things she described was, I thought self-compassion was scented candles and having a bath. It turns out self-compassion is talking to yourself, the way you talk to other people. And just hearing somebody pick up that message from my book and then share it on the radio, that just really, really moved me. And yeah, I'm already starting to get feedback from people who go, actually, somebody this week told me they read my book while they're away on holiday, they're traveling, and there's a page in my book where it asks you just to reflect on a perfect cup of coffee. Just one moment where you're just sitting and things feel right. It's a way of helping you notice what matters to you, who are you with, what are you doing. And he said that exercise led him to come home, and he's someone who's been struggling with how much time does he spend doing his day job versus how much time does he spend painting. And he said he read that chapter and he came home and painted a whole painting based on that idea. So I can't paint to save my life. I can barely draw a stick figure. But hearing that somebody else has painted a beautiful painting based on something I wrote in my book, that's so special. So big shout out to that artist. Thank you.
In the process of writing, Ben, what keeps you going? Were there moments when you had felt a bit of, despair, or those sensation that it's just a insurmountable challenge to get through this?
So for me, the secret to writing books is not many words and lots of pictures, and pay someone else to draw the pictures. So I knew I was going to get to the end because I knew I was only aiming for a few words, but the levels of doubt and despair and what the hell am I doing this? And because I've been that clinician psychologist for over 20 years, so many of my friends are psychologists or they've just heard me talk enough. I'm like, everybody knows the stuff. We don't need any more books in the world. We don't need any, and to catch myself and go, actually, there's still a lot of people in the world who haven't heard these ideas yet, who still think that they should be able to choose to stop worrying and there's something wrong with them if they can't, or they're broken if they feel sad. And there are some other amazing books out there, but to remind myself that just like we need different psychologists and therapists and counselors in the world, because there's different human beings and everyone's going to have a different person who resonates with them, we need different books out there too. And the way I write isn't going to resonate with everyone, but there's certain people who are going to find my writing style and the way I express these ideas, even though I didn't come up with any of these ideas. These are all ideas from much cleverer people than me. But the way I get the ideas across resonates with some people. And I had to say that to myself an awful lot, because there was many times where I was going, what the hell am I doing? The world doesn't need this book. People will find out that I'm a big fraud. People will see me on my worst clinical days. or when I'm really grumpy with my kids, or any of my other times, and go, why the hell should I read a book by this person? And I am not claiming I've got any of the answers figured out, and I try and say that very clearly at the beginning. I don't have all the answers, but I know some of the things I say resonate with some of the people some of the time, and that blows my mind. It's a really cool thing.
Any plans, Ben? What's next for you?
Oh, that's a big question. My book just came out in August. Well, it's not even out in the US until July, I think. July, US does things differently. So New Harbinger has picked up the US rights for the book, and they're going to release the book halfway through 2026. So my future plans is to talk about this book for the next year. I am looking for more podcasts. I'm looking for places to write books. I'm on the other side of the world for most people. I can't be at conferences. I can't be running workshops across Europe and America. So my way is, how do I get my message across from, literally the furthest corner of the earth? That's my grandfather left Europe after the war, moved to New Zealand because it was the furthest place in the world from Europe. So it's not coincidence. It's a deliberate plan that I am in the furthest away place in the world. And so, my current plan is, how do I talk about this book? How do I get these ideas across in as many different places as I'm able to? And my plan is to have as many lovely conversations with people as I can. If you're listening to this and something resonates, please do reach out to me. I'm on the other side of the world, and it means the friggin' world to me, hearing from people on the other side of the world and knowing that something resonates. As my poor wife will tell you, I really love talking about ACT, and she really loves it when I talk to other people about ACT. So my plan for this next year is to have as many exciting, interesting, moving conversations with people as I can. And if one of those conversations leads to what shall I do next, then that's super exciting. There is no 10-year plan. There's no next book plan at the moment. I'm really looking forward to interacting with lots of people and seeing where this project, which I hadn't planned, it came from the one before, which I hadn't planned. That came from the one before, which I hadn't planned. And I'm looking forward to finding out what happens next too, Ross. That's a long way of saying that.
Thank you. And just to finish off for us, Ben, do you have a takeaway for the listeners?
Takeaway for the listeners? The central page of Stuff That Sucks is figure out what you care about and care about it. And I think that's probably one of the most useful things I've ever said. If I could summarize my work into one billboard or tombstone or takeaway for a podcast, it's possibly that. It's like, the world needs all the things. Find your passion and do it.
Here. Thank you, Ben, for this wonderful chat. It's the first time we've met, and it's been a delight and a joy to just spend some time with you and hear about your work and your wonderful books.
I'd love that. Thank you so much, Ross.
That's it, Pea Supers. Part 2 of my chat with Dr. Ben in the bag. You'll find the show notes for this episode at peoplesoup.captivate.fm or wherever you get your podcasts. Now, more than ever, you can help me reach more people with the special People Soup ingredients, stuff that could be really useful for them. So please, if you found this episode useful, do share it with people you know. And also, if you subscribe and drop us a review, it helps us get recognised in the charts. Thanks to Andy Glenn for his spoon magic and Alex Engelberg for his vocals. But most of all, dear listener, thanks to you. Look after yourselves, Pea Supers, and bye for now.
Thank you so much, Ross. It's been a lot of fun, and thank you for helping spread the word. You have a great day, and I'll head home. Take care, my friend. Bye-bye.